Craig Goldman of Fort Worth. Thank you so much. So you are giving up your Texas House seat and you're running for Congress.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it is a bittersweet decision because I do love the Texas House. I love what we've been able to accomplish the last 6 sessions. We've done transformative things for the state, as Governor Abbott has called it, part of the Texas miracle the last decade. And I've been honored to be a part of that and been a leader in making monumental change in the state to benefit generations of Texans to come. But the opportunity came to run for Congress when Representative Kay Granger decided that she wasn't going to run again. And our nation's in trouble. I mean, there are major issues that we need to fix in our nation's capital on behalf of the citizens of the United States. And so it is a bittersweet decision to live at the Texas State House, but I want to bring those transformative changes we made in Austin and take those ideas up to Washington, D.C.
Why should Republicans select you, vote for you, over your opponent in the May 28th primary runoff?
Well, the difference is very clear. I have a proven conservative voting record, 10 years worth in the Texas State House, and my opponent has no record of doing anything. And so it's very clear. I mean, whether it's pro-life issues, whether it's Second Amendment, where we made constitutional carry of the law of the state of Texas, where it's spending billions of dollars to defend our Texas border, I've done it. I've been a part of it. I've been a leader in the Texas State House helping to make those things happen.
You've racked up a lot of endorsements. You got the endorsement from Governor Abbott, the Lieutenant Governor, former Governor Perry, Mayor Matty Parker. What does this say about your campaign?
Well, it says about what the type of person I am. I mean, I get in there and I roll up my sleeves and go to work. And that's why Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick have endorsed me, and former Governor Perry. When I got to Austin, we figured out what are the problems that need to be solved. And, you can go there and go to receptions and dinners and things like that if you want to do that as a member, or you can go and roll up your sleeves and go to work. And that's what I did. And so I've been very close with Governor Perry, very close with Governor Abbott, very close with Governor Patrick, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, in working on issues, working on legislation to solve problems of Texas. Perfect example. We passed a major fentanyl bill this session. Well, prior to session, I realized it was a problem in the state. And I started meeting with people and coming up with crafting legislation to make it the hardest, toughest bill in the United States that any state has passed, dealing with fentanyl dealers and people who distribute fentanyl, the number one killer of 18 to 45-year-olds in our country. And I worked closely with Governor Abbott as we got that bill passed, and closely with Lieutenant Governor Patrick to get it passed out of the Senate. And again, we started with nothing. So as far as crafting that legislation. So it's truly is working with others to solve the problems of not only my district, my city, my county, but also the state of Texas. And that's what I want to do in Washington, D.C. What are the problems facing us in this nation? And I want to roll up my sleeves and go to work and help solve the problems for the people of the United States.
So if you're elected, what are your top 3 priorities?
Well, top 3 is pretty simple. 1, border. I mean, hopefully I won't be working with the Biden administration, let's put it that way. Hopefully I'll be working with President Donald Trump and his administration, and we can work together to solve the horrific mess that the Biden administration has left behind in the state. We literally have Border Patrol. I was just down there about a month ago, and we literally have Border Patrol agents being told, stand down, don't do the jobs you're being paid to do. And they're demoralized, and they're not allowed to do that. And so because of the billions of dollars that the Texas State Legislature has authorized and passed for Governor Abbott to use, we have been able to have Texas State Guard and our DPS troopers be down there and set up rail cars and razor wire and be a deterrent for those crossing the border and telling them, you're not going to come across our border, go somewhere else. And we see that happening. They have said, our DPS troopers and our Texas Guard has said, that has been a major difference maker in limiting the number of people crossing that border every single day. So that by far is issue number 1. Issue number 2 is dealing with our budget and our deficit. $34 trillion. We are in a deficit in our federal government. That's ridiculous. We should not be in debt. And we don't do that in Texas. We balance our budget every single session in Texas. In fact, we had a $30 billion surplus. We have $20 billion in our rainy day fund. The way we do it in Texas is the right way, and it should be the national model. And I'm going to go work to make sure it's the national model.
And do you have a third, or are those your top two?
Well, really, those are the top two that I'm going to focus on. Well, the third, of course, is representing this district, is making sure we have a strong defense. Lockheed Martin is the #1 employer in this district. Over 19,000 employees go to work there every single day, mostly working on building the F-35 and other things, the support for the F-35. We have to continue to have a strong national defense, and representing this district especially, that certainly is going to be a top priority as well.
So you want to pick up where Congresswoman Granger leaves off?
Well, again, I think it's representing this district. I mean, it truly is helping those who you represent. You know, what those men and women do every single day, going to work at that, especially at that plant. Of course, Bell is here as well, BNSF. We have some major employers in this area, and specifically in this district, that I'm going to go up there and fight to make sure that we continue to give them the resources to those companies so that they continue to be able to employ that many people.
I wanted to ask you about, going back to the border for a minute, there was a lot made about the bipartisan border security bill that was developed in the Senate and then kind of fell flat and didn't go anywhere. How would you have voted on that if it ever got to a House, if you were there?
I'm sorry, say it again.
This is the bipartisan bill that
Oh,
was
at the
developed
federal,
in
I'm sorry,
Senate.
I've got
Yeah,
Austin on my
federal
mind.
level. Yeah.
At the federal level.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know, again, because the legislation changes as it goes. I mean, so, look, I know what we've done in Austin, and I know that we passed the strongest border bill any state has. We actually allowed our DPS troopers and our agents to be able to arrest people as they cross that border. That is something I want to see. I want to see our federal border patrol agents being allowed to do their jobs again and arrest those who cross that border illegally and send them back from the countries where they came from. And there are over 50 countries now that they're identifying people crossing the border. That's ridiculous. I mean, we don't know who these people are. And we don't, it's absolutely unbelievable that we're allowing this to happen as a federal government.
Let's go back to, you talked about the budget and a balanced budget. And so what ideas do you have that would try to bring the budget in balance? I mean, cut in spending, you know, Republicans historically like tax cuts, but they, you know, do they have to pay for themselves, et cetera, et cetera?
It starts with cutting spending. I mean, it's basic. Look, when we've had deficits in Austin, when we've been given guidance that we don't have as much money as we did last session, first thing you do is you start cutting. And there is an immense amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government. And it's going to go in there and look at agency by agency, see what they are giving, and start making cuts, because there's no question there is massive waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government, and money that's going to programs or going to entities should not be doing there. Look, I don't know one child in the United States of America that's being educated by the Department of Education. So would I be in favor of shutting down the Department of Education and giving all those resources back to the states to allow, and to the cities to allow those local decisions, how our children are educated, be decided not by the federal government, but our local individuals, our families, our parents. Those are the ones that should be deciding how their children are educated, not the federal government.
So you would advocate for that?
I would absolutely advocate for that.
Any other departments federally?
Not shutting down completely, but again, look, we have something in Texas called we have the Sunset. I sat on the Sunset Committee for 4 years. What do? We review every single agency. We look at every single dollar, how they spend it. Are they spending our taxpayers' dollars wisely? And there's not a lot of agencies that stand up to that or come back to us every single session and say, oh, we're doing everything perfect, because no one's perfect. And so no agency is run perfect. So we are able to look at them and say, let's make these changes. Let's tweak what you're doing here. Let's spend the taxpayer money more wisely. And we don't do that at the federal government. We don't have any oversight basically over the federal agencies. So I want to institute basically what we have here in Texas, the Sunset Commission, federally, so that we have oversight over those agencies and we know how every single dime is spent of our federal taxpayer dollars.
Is that realistic in Washington?
Well, we'll see. Look, you don't know until you're there to be able to fight for it. It didn't used to be realistic in Austin until someone stood up for it years ago and said, let's do this, and everybody else got on board. Look, same thing as in Austin. It's in the Texas State House, it's very difficult to get 76 votes for anything. But I have gone there the last several sessions and advocated for my legislation and been able to do it. So you need a fighter there, up there, and believe it or not, this is 2 words you don't use in government, common sense. It actually is common sense that we should have oversight over every single agency and every single dollar that's spent in those agencies to see if those dollars are being spent wisely.
Ukraine funding.
Yes.
Do you support it?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, one, because Putin's not going to stop. He's already taken 5 provinces. He wants Ukraine. And look, basically how you know you're going to go, your path forward is by studying the past. And any student of history can see what happened in Europe in the 40s and basically how World War II started. And so all you have to do is look at what a person Putin is and know that he's already taken more provinces and he wants Ukraine. Once he takes Ukraine, do you really think he's going to stop? Anybody who thinks he's going to stop then hasn't studied history and doesn't really understand who he is. He's not going to stop. And so by sending money and weapons to Ukraine now is saving us from having to use our troops later. Because the second he takes, if he's able to take Ukraine, then he's on border countries of NATO. And we will back our NATO friends and our NATO allies. And when that happens, then we have to start sending troops. So I'm all for giving aid to Ukraine, absolutely.
There have been growing calls for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Where are you on that?
I'm for whatever Israel decides is in the best interest of Israel. And they have to, I certainly agree with Netanyahu that they have to go in there and root out Hamas as much as possible because they're not going to stand down. And so, look, war is horrific. No one wants war. It's why I'm for sending aid to Ukraine now. We don't want to send our men and women into a time of war. And if Ukraine falls, then we will have to because we're going to go defend our NATO allies. So war is a terrible thing. We've seen some horrific tragedies. But whatever Israel needs, I'm all for giving them because they are our strongest ally in the Middle East. And we know Hamas is a terrorist organization and they have to do away with them.
Abortion rights. Democrats are trying to make this a campaign issue from the Biden administration on down. And Democrats want to codify Roe v. Wade in Congress. I would imagine you would disagree with that. But some on the flip side, Republicans have said they'd like to pass a national ban on abortion. Others say leave it to the states. Where are you on that?
First of all, I'm very proud of my pro-life record. We certainly have passed very strong pro-life legislation in the Texas State House. It was quite interesting when we passed the heartbeat bill several sessions ago. Even some Democrats, some friends of mine, of course I won't say who, are like, this is a very tough vote for me because we're being told to vote no on this, but personally I'm for it. I would love to see a federal heartbeat bill passed. Because the second a heartbeat is detected, I believe life begins at conception, but as soon as a heart is detected, it's very hard to convince somebody that a person should be allowed to have an abortion once a heartbeat is detected.
So in Texas, that's about 6 weeks, right?
Right.
And that's what you would support nationally?
I would support, absolutely, I would support that nationally.
And as far as just what is going on in Congress right now between the House Republicans, there's a lot of division, a lot of angst. And I'm wondering how, if you are elected, would that impact and guide you as far as policies, bills, et cetera? Well,
look, I've been chair of our Republican caucus in the Texas State House. I've been on our caucus board the last 8 years. I feel like I've been able to bring people together. Certainly people are going to fight for what they believe in, and some shout louder than others, and some love to come on TV or get on the social media. But I pretty much, hopefully, have a history. If you ask another member of the Texas State House, what type of member is he, is bringing people together to solve problems. And so, we see a lot of people on social media who are up in Congress, but realize there are also over 400 people there. So really, the names we know most, not being there, if you're not truly a student of Washington, D.C., are the people who are loudest on social media. So the good news is there are men and women who go up there every single day to certainly fight for the policies they believe in, to advocate for different policies or different things for back in their district. But at the end of the day, I believe a lot of good people, over 400 people, are there every single day to benefit the United States of America. And certainly it starts with the relationships. And my goal is to get up there and get to know every single member of Congress. And then that's how you start developing relationships and working with them and advocating for what you believe in.
Last question. What are you doing to win this primary runoff?
Well, certainly I was honored and proud and privileged to have over 30,000 votes the first round. And we're not taking the foot off the gas. We are knocking on doors, we're making phone calls, we're sending out emails, we're reminding people when the runoff election is at May 28th, and early voting is only 1 week, May 20th through 24th. There is no weekend early voting this time. So mainly it's educating people when the runoff election actually is, and then getting our message out of who I am, what my conservative voting record has been in the Texas State House, and hopefully earning enough votes to be elected to the U.S. Congress.
Greg Goldman, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks very much.
We appreciate it.
it.